Hello everyone, welcome to FarreeMakes Holiday Meals. Today I'll be making some checkerboard cookies. So first I'm starting with my butter. I'm adding powdered sugar and some cane sugar. And I'm just going to use my hand mixer here and make sure this is all nice and creamed. And we're looking for a pale yellow color and for all the butter and sugar to be evenly mixed together. Okay, so that's looking good. Next, I'm going to flavor it with some vanilla essence. And I'm just going to mix this in by hand using my spatula. So you just want to really make sure you get everything, scrape all the sides of the bowl, and stir that in nicely. Okay, I'm going to take a little taste, make sure it's good. So half of this I'm going to put into a bowl. That's going to be for our chocolate portion of this checkerboard cookie. So right now I'm just going to focus on this almond flavoring. So I'm adding some almond essence and 1 egg yolk. I'm just going to mix this in. Then I'm adding my flour. And this part I decided to kind of like mix in by hand. I'm using kind of like a chopping motion, and that usually gets everything nicely incorporated. And then I'm just going to turn this out onto my plastic wrap. It looks crumbly. Have faith. We're going to push it together. Okay, so I'm going to put that down, scrape off my spatula, get all that goodness off of there. Okay, and then now I'm just going to use the plastic wrap itself to kind of form and mold this dough and really bring it together. So I'm just going to smoosh it, press it, and there we have it. Right, now we're going to move on to the other half of our butter and sugar, and this is going to be the chocolatey one. So I'm adding my egg yolk, mix that in. Make sure it's nice and evenly incorporated. And then my cocoa powder. I'm adding my flour. And we're going to do our little chopping technique again and make sure this gets mixed in nicely. Okay. Once we have it, then it's time to turn this out also onto some plastic wrap. Make sure you get all that goodness out of the bowl and form and press that into a square. So now we have our 2 pieces of dough. And for the first one, I'm going to do the checkerboard cookie. So I'm just making sure that both of these doughs are about the same size. And I'm just cutting off the ends and then starting to shape my dough. So the chocolate dough, you will notice, is a little firmer. This was in the freezer a little bit longer. I had taken out the almond dough a little bit sooner because I wanted it to be softer than the chocolate one, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm just measuring them up and making sure that they're all the same width. Okay, once I have my pieces set aside, then I'm just pressing the chocolate one onto the almond and then flipping it, and then I'm going to put my other chocolate on top of the corresponding almond. And because the almond is softer, it will kind of act as a glue and bind both of them together. So as we see here, it looks beautiful, nicely molded, and I'm going to do the same for the other sets. Okay, press that together. And then these 2 I'm going to put into the freezer. So I'm just going to wrap them back in the same plastic wrap they were in. Make sure you roll it nice and tight, and that goes in the freezer. Now with the scraps that we have here, we can get creative. So what I decided to do is cut this chocolate into strips, same for the almond. And then I'm just going to line them up and make a nice little striped pattern thing. So I was just making this up as I went along. I wanted to utilize as much of the dough as possible. So this is what kind of like came to mind. So I just alternated between the 2, pressed it down, And then I just put my plastic wrap to use as a barrier when I took my rolling pin and just kind of made sure that they were all cohesive and smushed together. Okay, got that done. I'm cutting off the ends just to make them a little bit more even. Don't worry, we'll use those scraps too. And this one I just wrapped up, and that also went into the fridge. So now the scraps, it wasn't much, but I can still do something. So I decided to kind of do a marbly effect. So I'm just rolling it together, reminded me of Play-Doh, and then just shaped it into a rectangular-ish shape, and then use my rolling pin. Now from here you could have used your cookie cutter and cut out rounds, but I wanted to roll it. So I have a nice little roll. All right, so these are all of my doughs here. So it's time to slice and bake. So the first is the checkerboard cookies. I'm cutting them, I guess you can say about 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm gonna lay them down on my parchment lined cookie sheet. Look how cute those are, guys. Like, it's so simple, but it's so beautiful. Those are my favorite type of cookies. So I'm laying those out, and that's going in the oven. Beautiful. And with our striped cookies, I'm just cutting that in half, and we're gonna make some like little bars. So I'm just cutting those. And that goes on our parchment lined cookie sheet. Looks so cute. And then lastly, I have my roll of cookie dough. I decided to make these kind of like buttons because they were the last of the cookie dough, and technically those are the toughest type of cookie. So to make them little buttons, it makes it easier to eat, and it's good for snacking. So those were for me. All right, so we lay our buttons down, and that's it. This goes in the oven as well to bake. And this is the final product. Look at those beautiful checkerboard cookies. And a great use of our striped cookies and buttons. This is gorgeous. And be sure to check out how I added this to my cookie box. Thanks for watching, everyone.